Pat McAfee and Adam Cole. What is going on with Pat McAfee and Adam Cole? That was what social media was buzzing about, the internet was buzzing about, whatever was buzzing about last week, at the end of last week. What was going on with there? Now, if you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen the clip, it's been shared quite a lot since then, but there was an argument, a shoot, some people are saying, between Adam Cole and Pat McAfee on Pat McAfee's, I believe it's a radio show, the Pat McAfee show, or something along those lines. And it had Adam Cole uncharacteristically blow up and get angry at the former NFL player during an interview with him. And a lot of people were questioning whether it was real or it was a work. And from the top, I must say, kayfabe apparently is alive. It has a heartbeat. People have been saying over and over again, kayfabe's dead. You can't do kayfabe in 2020. Kayfabe doesn't exist. But hey, it's still here. Apparently, you can still do kayfabe. You can still do, I don't know. You can still work the people, because I think that's what's going on here. Now, let's backtrack a bit. Let's actually really break down what happened during Adam Cole's appearance on the show. Now, it started when Pat McAfee asked Adam Cole about the comparisons he's received over time between himself and Shawn Michaels. But Pat McAfee, being Pat McAfee, if you're not aware of Pat McAfee, and I must say this actually before we get right into it, Pat McAfee, whenever he's on these NXT pre-shows, whenever he does anything associated with NXT, he's very much himself. You know, he will say things that are a little bit outrageous. He's very brutally honest, and he's entertaining. He's very funny. He was all entertaining when he played American football. I'm not huge on the sports. I don't know everything about Pat McAfee, but from what I understand, he was a very entertaining personality even then, which is why he's transitioned so well over to a broadcasting career. So he's talking about these discussions between Adam Cole and Shawn Michaels, and he notes, what Shawn Michaels was. Which Adam Cole then retorts to him, well, first of all, Shawn Michaels has said there's lots of comparisons between the two of us, which is a huge compliment. He's the greatest of all time. I, by any means, I've never said that I'm as good as Shawn Michaels ever. I know I have years and years to get to that point. And he says, quote, I think Shawn realizes that maybe I'm on my way to having a career like his. He'll tell you, and I'll tell you, that I'm not worried about becoming the second Shawn Michaels. I'm going to be the first Adam Cole. Right, so again, normal conversation. There's no heat here yet. It hasn't blown up just yet. But Pat McAfee responded. He was doing what a good, if this is a shoot, which it isn't, but if it was a shoot, he's doing what any good broadcaster would be doing here, and he's pushing the buttons of his guest, trying to get the best reaction out of his guest. So Pat McAfee responds by continuing the point that Adam Cole is not comparable at all to Shawn Michaels. He being Pat McAfee, infers that Adam Cole had utilized the Undisputed Era to grow his brand and become the longest reigning NXT champion in the history, while Shawn Michaels had to do it all by himself, which again, is part of the reason why I'm 99% certain that this is a work, because in any form of argument, why would you start talking about you surrounded yourself with the Undisputed Era? That is kayfabe. That is kayfabe. You didn't do that in real life, so Pat McAfee says he was able to make his name all by himself. That's the big difference with you. Whenever you got brought into NXT to be the king that you call yourself, they surrounded you with people. Some people say this, I don't say this. People say you surrounded yourself, which is very smart, and they might have done it for you, who are also very, very talented, maybe even more talented than you. And then the Undisputed Era got a chance to take off, end quote. Which, of course, Adam Cole, he is still a heel, he's still in character here, responds by saying that he took the time out of his day with his family to show up on this show, and he's being completely disrespected by Pat McAfee. I won't say the exact explicit language, because YouTube does not approve of explicit language, but he says, you're being a total D right now. I find it so ironic, of all people, that you say I surround myself with great talent, and the reason I succeeded, of all people, you, what, a punter? You being in a team that literally did everything, you just happen to kick a football every now and then, and all of a sudden you feel like you're really important, end quote. He also says, quote, of all people that say to me that I surround myself with super talented people, and that's the only reason I'm successful, you're a psycho. Which, again, we're starting to build up now. We're starting to get into a little bit of work shooting, brother. The conversation continued. Pat McAfee said that He didn't say the only reason, but the main reason. This led to Adam Cole saying that Pat McAfee had been taking shots at him throughout their entire conversation, and this jab about Pat McAfee being a punter was warranted, which Pat McAfee responded. He said, "I'm the player of the decade in my position. Although I was surrounded by good people, it was just me and a ball." Which then Adam Cole responds with, and I don't mean to be reading the entire transcript, but I think it's very interesting and relevant to the points we're going to be making here. Adam Cole responds with, "And Pat, guess what? I was the longest." This was the line, right? I must say this. This was the line which, as soon as I heard this, I went, okay, it is a work, because if he genuinely uses this as a response to how he gets in arguments with people, then Adam Cole is crazy. He's crazy if this is real, right? So Adam Cole says, quote, "I was the longest reigning NXT champion of all time. And guess who did that all by themselves? Oh yeah, that's right, me. Did it all by myself." And then Pat McAfee. So first of all, if you're saying that in an argument, oh yeah, I'm the longest NXT champion of all time and I did that all by myself, right? Right. I don't want to discredit Adam Cole for what he's done in his career, because he's great, and he was. I do think he's the best NXT champion of all time, and that's again a big list as well, and a big statement. But I do think he was that good. But what I will say is to say, if you're in a legitimate argument, say I'm the longest reigning NXT champion of all time, people will look at you and laugh in your face, because they know that professional wrestling is a work. Like if you say that I was the longest reigning anything in professional wrestling, they will look at you and go, seriously? Like, the Undertaker's streak, this might be a hot take and a controversial topic. The Undertaker's streak, it's an unbelievable feat. It will never be done again, not because of the superstar, but because WWE will never go that long in continuing the same path of anything, because they change their mind every 5 minutes. But if the Undertaker said, "Hey, I was undefeated at WrestleMania for however many straight WrestleManias, what is it, like 28? Or something ridiculous, 22. If he says that to someone, they'll go, "Yeah, well, yeah, because you were booked to win." That's how professional wrestling works. So for Adam Cole to say, "I was the longest reigning NXT champion and I did that by myself," they'll go, "Well, no, you didn't. The pencil did that." So as soon as I heard that, I went, "Okay, right, we're working. We're shoot working here. Okay, this isn't a shoot by any stretch of the imagination." But Pat McAfee responds. He says, "Nope, don't believe that. We watched the takeovers, Adam. The Undisputed Era is the main reason why you've succeeded. By the way, that's smart. That's business, baby, especially for you, because you're kind of small." And that made Adam Cole erupt. If you can talk about him not being Shawn Michaels, you can talk about him being not as good as Shawn Michaels, you can talk about him surrounding himself with the Undisputed Era, but if you talk about Adam Cole being small, then you are really going to PO the leader of the Undisputed Era. And this confused me, because I saw some people then start to say, "Well, he's been called small his whole career, so why wouldn't he be angry? Why wouldn't that be a trigger for him?" Because, come on, this is a guy that works for the WWE doing media, right? If you kick off and get any form of negative press in the WWE on a media tour, they will throw you straight into the developmental bin quicker than anything. Okay, this is WWE, who obsesses on positive PR. If you get any form of positive PR in WWE, it's everywhere. That all they are is positive PR. You think Adam Cole's going to blow up and start going crazy because he was called small? Are you kidding me? Of course it's not real, right? So that comment just makes Adam Cole explode. He throws the microphone, exclaims, "F you, Pat. I'm seriously sick of your bleep. I come all my way here to take time away from my family and come do your stupid effing show, and you're going to continue to disrespect me. F you, Pat, F you." Now, again, that took people by surprise, and it should. That's the point. It's meant to shock people. It's a shocking interview. It's meant to get people's attention. And again, of course, people use this as the rationale as to why this was definitely a shoot. Well, Adam Cole, he dropped the F-bomb like 500 times during that sentence. Adam Cole, WWE's PG. They're definitely not going to have people swear. Well, people swear. Okay, that's a fact of life. Go outside for 10 minutes. You will probably hear about 10 Fs and 2 MFs in about 10 seconds. That is, unfortunately, people say it's a lack of vocabulary or it's a lack of dignity or class or whatever. It's a fact of life. People curse, people swear. It happens. People will say, "Well, why would a WWE wrestler do that?" That's the point. As far as I'm aware, I mean, again, I don't know about Pat McAfee's show, but if it's on satellite radio, like something like Sirius, then they allow cursing. That's kind of the point of being on satellite radio. Anything goes. Just ask Howard Stern. So, again, maybe it's just the audience that they have there. And the fact that I'm making a video and talking about it to you now, and we're discussing it, the fact that social media exploded with it, the fact that Adam Cole was trending and Pat McAfee was trending, that's the reason why they did it. Like, it just is absolutely the reason why they did it. Now, this was also Adam Cole's first set of media since he lost the NXT Championship to Keith Lee at the Great American Bash. So, again, how do you get your name in the headlines? How do NXT and WWE make a bit of headlines? You have Adam Cole throw a scene and throw a fit on the Pat McAfee show. It makes sense. And this isn't any schlub. This isn't just any radio broadcaster. This isn't any television show. Pat McAfee had a stellar career in the NFL. He retired in 2017 following 3 knee surgeries in 4 years. Since then, he's moved into media and has been involved as an analyst for NXT. And people will say, well, if they're going to work up to a match, which is what I think they're moving towards here, this is really what I think they're moving towards. People say, well, he's had 3 knee surgeries in 4 years. How can he do that? And my response to that is there have been, how many WWE superstars have had the longest and most successful runs in WWE because their career in the NFL or their career in whatever sports ended because of injuries, but they can still do a WWE match and they can still do a WWE schedule. So many. Kevin Nash, a basketball player, ruined one of his knees. He could still become a world champion in WWE. Kane was on the track to become an NFL player, damaged his knee. He ends up as Kane. He still wrestles today, occasionally, and he's a mayor somewhere. Not that the mayor has anything to do with your knee injury, but my point being the same there. He wrestled for like 20 years in WWE on a knee that wasn't good enough to be in the NFL. The Rock he had knee injuries, which hurt his run in the NFL, potentially getting to the NFL. There are so many people in professional sports that they, for whatever reason, they didn't make it because of an injury, because of a career-ending injury, and they end up going to WWE. So the idea that because Pat McAfee has had a couple of knee surgeries that caused him to retire from the NFL, that is no reason why he can't work a match in WWE. No reason. If anything, the more dangerous thing is probably his concussion history competing in the NFL, not his knee injuries. No way. Not his knee injuries at all. So I still think he could work a match. Absolutely. Does he want to? Oh, we'll have to wait and see. What can he do? We'll have to wait and see. He's an athlete. So I'm sure if he wanted to, they could pull it off. And someone as good as Adam Cole, again, they're calling him a modern-day Shawn Michaels there, or comparing him to Shawn Michaels there. If there's anyone that could do it and pull it off, it'd probably be Adam Cole. I think that's where they're going with this. I absolutely think that's where they're going with this. And people will say, well, Adam Cole with the trigger about his height. That's the thing people are saying. There's a lot of people's rationale for why this is a shoot. One, the language Adam Cole used. And again, my response to that would be, that's the point. It's meant to shock you, and it's meant to get you talking. So, tick, that's done. People say, well, what about the height? I bet Adam Cole's been called short and called smaller his whole career. And that's a common narrative thread in WWE, right? A common thought in WWE history is that Vince McMahon, as the WWE chairman, likes bigger, larger-than-life characters, and typically means that they have to themselves, in terms of their size, be big too. Someone like Adam Cole, 15 years ago, might not have succeeded in WWE. Certainly wouldn't be considered as a future WWE champion or a future Universal champion. No way would that have happened a while ago in WWE. But people change that. People like Eddie Guerrero, you've got guys like Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles. For me, CM Punk to an extent, those kind of guys changed the landscape in WWE. And they really, really have. That's not the change in the landscape of just, independent guys are going to come in. In terms of more change in the landscape of they're smaller guys, but they succeeded anyway because they were great in the ring and great what they did. For me, Eddie Guerrero is the real turning point then. And it said modern day Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, obviously akin to that too. But they've changed that notion. But some people will say, I bet Adam Cole's been told 1,000,000 times in his career, you're too short. You're too short. And again, I'm sure he's probably been told that in some interviews. So if that's the case, if in some interviews he's been told that he's short, in those other interviews, has he gone up to them and smacked them around the face, started dropping F-bombs and broken microphones and all sorts? No, because that's not how you conduct yourself in interviews. Certainly, you don't conduct yourself in an interview like that when you're a WWE employee. Absolutely not. You'd be getting a phone call from Vinnie Mac straight away going, "What the hell's going on, pal?" So that it just no, it's just not happening. So if anything, I liked the discussion about whether it's legitimate or if it's a work or if it's a shoot. But I think the fact that even the smallest fraction of people consider it to be a shoot, then it's worked. Then it's absolutely worked. Now I saw that Bully Ray and Mark Henry, both WWE Hall of Famers, legendary guys in the business, done it all. Just you can't fault them for their opinions. I heard that on the Busted Open podcast and the Busted Open radio show that they're saying, wow, it could be a shoot. Adam Cole looked like he got hot and all of this sort of stuff. And I was hearing that and I was going, seriously? And maybe they're just trying to, stir up the pot even more, right? Sometimes it's good to keep things in storyline. And as old artists of the pro wrestling era, even though they're on a show talking about a lot of insider wrestling stuff, maybe they're trying to keep up the idea that kayfabe could still be alive. And they're trying to keep up the conversation in kayfabe. Maybe that's what they're trying to do there. But in my opinion, it's just not. It's a non-topic. It is. Whilst it was awesome and I really did enjoy it, I thought as a work goes, I thought it was great, and I'd really hope, you can see more of this kind of thing in the media. I enjoy when people keep kayfabe alive. I enjoy when people appear in character on shows. I enjoy if people get annoyed in interviews because it's part of their character. It's what their character would do. Keeping kayfabe alive is awesome. It was only this year that The Undertaker, or in the last couple of years rather, that The Undertaker came out of kayfabe for the first time in 30 years. The guy lived in the in the venue or in the hometown that was kayfabe. You never saw him outside of wearing black. He always wore black, wore sunglasses. He never spoke. He just scared people and intimidated you. He always looked like he was dead, whether good or for the better or not. He was The Undertaker. He didn't do interviews. He didn't do media. You never saw him sitting in the audience at the Hall of Fame. None of that stuff. Why? Because that's The Undertaker. That was his character. The whole point was to keep up the mystique. And even guys back in the 90s, when they would do interviews on talk shows or whatever, they would stay in character. And it helped the integrity of the business. And it helped sell tickets. It helped keep people watching because the whole thing is a work. You're working the people. Now, that might sound like a negative connotation or have like a negative connotation to it because you're fooling or deceiving the people when I say working the people. But unfortunately, that's pro wrestling. The whole point of pro wrestling is you're simulating a real life conflict. You're fooling the people. You're working the people. That's why it's called a work. So people would say, oh, well, if you say that, oh, it's a work, you mean it as a negative way. I don't mean it as a negative way at all. I think that as a work, this was a great work. Why? Because even in 2020, even during an era which everyone knows everything that happens about professional wrestling, knows everyone about everyone's lives, knows everything about how wrestling works, the storylines, where they're going to go in the future, who likes who doesn't like who has heat, they still manage to work a percentage of the audience somehow. Then that is commendable. That is commendable, and it's a job well done that they managed to do that. You can't fault them for that. And it got people talking, and I think maybe it got people talking because it's the first time in a long, long time that the people have been asked the question about whether it's a work or a shoot. And I think people deep down, they kind of like it. I like it. I like being in kayfabe. I love discussing like this. I love discussing whether it's real or it's not. That's what made pro wrestling so great back in the 90s and especially in the 80s, even though it was called sports entertainment. But you remember when you first watched wrestling as a kid? I remember it. And in your head, you haven't been smartened up yet, or you haven't realized that it is a work. And you think that it's a shoot. And to me, that's some of the best times of me watching wrestling is when I'm a kid, because I believed it. I was into it. Everything in there, like I watched it differently to how I watch it now. If I'm watching it now, and so I don't want to call myself necessarily an analyst because I think that's a bit too self-indulgent of myself, but as I watch it now, as a fan, I'm analysing things about, okay, well, why didn't that work? Why have they gone for that decision? Why did they go for that creative decision? Why didn't they use this move? Why didn't they say this in the promo? Why didn't they do this? As a kid, you're just kind of watching it about who's going to win, because as a kid, you're worked, and the work works. Not to sound like Rihanna, but the work works. And to get back to that, and to get back to that sort of, I don't know, childlike innocence of, is this real or is this not real? That's the best part of pro wrestling, isn't it? That's the best part of pro wrestling, is when you don't know if what you're watching is real or not. It's the same with like a magic trick, isn't it? It's the same with a magic trick. 90% of the time you watch a magic trick, you go, that's not possible. I don't know how they did it, but it's not possible. You saw someone in half, that's not possible. But sometimes you watch that magic trick and you go, how? There's no way to fake that. How did they do that? How did they do it? Is that real? What I'm watching now, is this real? You watch one of these magicians where, I don't know, they're walking from a tightrope and you're thinking, with no net, and you're thinking, the danger's there, because if they fall, they're done for, they're over. But in reality, the person doing it has a way in which they're safe, but we just don't know about. But the audience is deceived into thinking that's real. And that's when pro wrestling gets great. That's when, for me, that's the sweet spot of pro wrestling. When I'm going, is this real or is this not? That's what's great. I didn't in this case, because I immediately thought, well, this is definitely a work. But the fact that some people were genuinely having that discussion or were confused as to whether it's real or not, that's great. Then they did their job. Adam Cole, Pat McAfee, stellar job. They did their job because they worked a portion of the audience. It was great. Now, some people are saying this is going to be leading to a match between two. I think so. I really do think so. Not a lot of people realise this, but Pat McAfee actually had an independent match years ago. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility to think that he hasn't been training, or he isn't even familiar with the basics of a match and could have been recently training with Adam Cole. We know he's at the Performance Center a lot. He's associated with NXT. He's got a great relationship with Triple H and with Adam Cole, even though this would lend you not to believe that. They do have a good relationship, and he's been a long-time advocate and analyst and on-screen, not necessarily on-screen talent in terms of the shows, but he's been widely associated with NXT for a while, right? During that SmackDown episode on Fox last year, where everyone was stranded in the Middle East and NXT took over, Pat McAfee was on commentary for the majority of that show. Why? Because he was associated with NXT. Now, he has the training to do a match. WWE has a long history of converting NFL stars or wannabe NFL stars into superstars, as just the whole pro wrestling business does in general. So it might be just a way to show that Adam Cole's character is frustrated, and we're going to go in this different direction of having Adam Cole versus Pat McAfee. It makes sense, especially considering that last week on NXT, it was announced that we're going to have an NXT TakeOver in August, NXT TakeOver 30, the 30th NXT TakeOver event in the brand's history. Again, okay, it makes sense. What do you do at that event on the 30th? I don't say the 30th anniversary because that's not true. The 30th event in the chronology of NXT TakeOver, you want to have a big match. You want to get people watching. How do you do that? Get Pat McAfee in and face off against Adam Cole. What else has Adam Cole got to do? What else has Adam Cole got to do at the moment? Because he's lost the NXT Championship. A lot of people saying, well, is he going to go to Raw? Is he going to go to SmackDown? At this period of time in July, it would be slightly confusing. I think, given the situation right now, this feud with Pat McAfee makes all the sense in the world. And the match with Pat McAfee makes all the sense in the world, and I'll tell you why. Because this leads up to August. This leads up to NXT TakeOver 30, which then is a nice bookend for Adam Cole to have the match at NXT TakeOver 30. He's going to win. He's not going to put Pat McAfee over. Regardless of a lot of the times that celebrities in WWE and celebrities in wrestling, they usually win, right, because of credibility. This isn't the case here. I mean, Pat McAfee's a retired NFL player. Adam Cole won't lose the match. But I think that this tides Adam Cole over nicely to August, and then he can debut either on Raw, either on SmackDown, post-SummerSlam. You can have the big post-SummerSlam Raws and SmackDowns, and you have Adam Cole make his appearance. Whether or not it's with the Undisputed Era, I mean, personally, I hope it is. That's not to say that it's guaranteed that they will be there with him. Reports suggest that there have been multiple, or a couple of different ideas pitched to Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era to come to Raw and SmackDown. by all accounts, some people in the group are more vocal about staying in NXT than others and not going to the main roster than others. Given everything that's happened when it comes to stars going from NXT to Raw or SmackDown over the last 3 or 4 years, they'd be well within their rights, the Undisputed Era, to say, you know what, why would I want to go to Raw or SmackDown? Look what's happened with some of the people that's gone there. Look at what Ricochet's doing now. I mean, what's he doing? Look at Eric Young. Eric Young went up, disappeared, and now he's back in Impact Wrestling. So many people. Bianca Belair and Shayna Baszler have just got back on television now. And look at their run since they've gone to Monday Night Raw. Matt Riddle's recent run on SmackDown is good for now. But, I mean, who knows what will happen in the future. Aleister Black, yeah, he's on Monday Night Raw, but does he feel like the star that he felt like he was in NXT? No, I would say so. EC3, he's back with Impact Wrestling. It's not a sure thing, which makes me laugh when it comes to NXT, because even though this is meant to be perceived as the third brand, this is the third brand in WWE, right? Along with Raw and SmackDown, NXT is the third brand. But in reality, it's still perceived as not, I think, in the company. I still think it's still perceived as developmental. It's getting people ready for Raw and SmackDown. But does this whole system really work? Because this is all about getting stars ready for Raw and SmackDown. They've got to be ready for Raw and SmackDown. Go to NXT, you can get ready. But then they do success. They have great success in NXT. And they go to Raw and SmackDown and they do terribly. So does the system even work? Is a system working or not? Because every time an NXT champion goes to Raw or SmackDown, at best they can become a United States champion. At worst, they don't even barely appear and they get released. And I'm not saying that just because you're a success in NXT, you should be a success on Raw and SmackDown, but I thought the whole point of implementing all of this was meant to be that you have a really successful system. You don't have flops. People are ready for Raw and SmackDown. People aren't ready at all for Raw and SmackDown. And that's no fault of they can't work or they're not good enough in the ring, etc., etc. They can't cut a promo. Realistically, the problem is what they're not ready for. They're not ready for the politics of Raw and SmackDown. They're not ready for the bad creative of Raw and SmackDown. And ultimately, they ain't ready for Vince McMahon. They deal with Triple H in NXT and they're happy with working with Triple H in NXT. They get used to working with Triple H in NXT and they go to the main roster and then they work with Vince and this crack staff of creative geniuses known as the writing team. And they ain't ready for that, because how many people are going to fail on the main roster because of it? A lot. And people will continue to do it, as that's the structure in WWE, and it will continue to be the case. Now, of course, I know I'm going off topic there, but I think it's worth considering when you think about Adam Cole's future, about if he goes to Raw or SmackDown post SummerSlam and post NXT TakeOver 30. I think that's something to definitely discuss and definitely to keep in mind. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the Adam Cole-Pat McAfee confrontation? Was it real? Was it a shoot? Was it a work? Do you think it's leading to a match, perhaps at NXT TakeOver 30? What did you think of Adam Cole's words, performance, or Pat McAfee's words or performance too? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. I really enjoy interacting with you guys in the comment section. If you've enjoyed the video, please smash a like. Also, it really does help us out on the channel, get into people's recommendation feeds and move us up the rankings on YouTube. So if you have enjoyed it, please do like the video. I would really appreciate that. And most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. We're closing in on 600 subscribers. The faster we get to 600, the faster we get to 1,000. Once we get to 1,000, we'll be doing a lot more watch-alongs, live streams, all of that good stuff. It's just a lot easier once we get to 1,000. So the quicker we get there, I would really appreciate it. If you have subscribed already and you're a regular viewer of these videos, I really do appreciate it. It's incredibly humbling that people take the time to watch your videos and interact with the videos. So I just hope I'm doing content that you enjoy and content that you enjoy digesting. And ultimately, it's just about talking about wrestling. My aim is to talk to you guys about wrestling like I'm talking to a friend about what we both enjoy watching, which is professional wrestling, right? So I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much for subscribing if you have already. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.